Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is teaching grammar through tasks, yeah? Now you're all familiar with this book, yeah?
Which one is it?
This one.
Oh,
This file.
yeah.
What do we think of it in general?
I like it.
You like it, yeah?
Teacher friendly.
Anything that you kind of find a little bit difficult?
I liked it at the start, now I'm bored of it.
Right.
Because it was nice to have a change, but it doesn't have, whereas in Cutting Edge you have the tasks and there's nothing like that.
Yeah. Okay, there's no task. It's basically a series of activities that sometimes, go nowhere. So basically I was doing an Intermediate 2 class, and if you look on page 56 and 57, you should have a copy of this on your desk, or the actual book. Have a look on page 56 and 57.
Sorry,
Tom, can you
Yeah,
open
fifth
it?
page, 56 and 57, yeah? What's the language focus there?
Second conditional.
The second conditional. Now I looked at this and it looked, for me it was very, very PPP. I didn't think the students would relate to the topics. We've got Isabella Rossellini and Joaquin Cortez. I didn't really think that would motivate them. So what I decided to do, I decided to create a task which integrated both this language focus and also there's a language focus here about personality adjectives. So it was a review of personality adjectives. Yeah? Okay. So the first thing I did, I got them to basically make a list of all the words they could think of to describe someone's personality. And a lot of these adjectives they'd already done before. Yeah, so they made a list, okay, and I gave them 4 minutes to make, to see if they can think of as many as they could, okay. Then once we'd done that, we went through them and we got them on the board. And I also gave them one of these. If you look at this,
Was that flip chart you used in your class? Just for
No, I don't think so. No, this is just for this purpose.
because you took the pictures on Facebook, didn't you?
Yeah. Who's that? Is that you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry. That was it, that was you.
No, you didn't.
No, but obviously they've said all the nice ones.
Copyright.
That's what I was trying to elicit, all the nice adjectives.
Naughty.
Alright, okay, so then what we did, I gave them a worksheet here and they looked at these adjectives and they divided them up into 3 categories. Okay? Then we did a little bit of work on stress, on the character adjectives here. Okay? Then I introduced the idea of a personality test and I elicited what is a personality test. And then I elicited what kind of questions might you find in a personality test. Okay? Then I divided them up into 2 groups and gave group A and B different personality tests. Okay, so just have a look at those. And the gist reading was, look at this personality test and decide which character adjective it was testing. Okay? So have a look through, can you see which character adjective it is?
Honest.
Yeah, honest, yeah. And there was another one on the back.
Light. Considerate.
Yeah, being considerate.
They're being considerate, okay. Good. Then what I got them to do, I got them into A and B and they interviewed each other. Okay, and then what they did at the end is they decided on a score, okay, and reported back to the class. Yeah? And then we decided, who in the group was the most dishonest, who in the group was the most considerate. Then I got them to choose a character adjective from here and then write a similar questionnaire based on a character adjective. So they were in pairs and everyone had a different character adjective. Okay? Then once they'd done their survey, once they'd written it, I corrected some of the vocabulary and then I got them to do the survey on 3 or 4 people in the class, and then the original pairs got back together and shared their results. they as a group wrote a summary of who they thought the most whatever in the class was, and they reported back. Okay? So that was the first task cycle. Then I referred them back to the original questionnaire, and I got them to underline some of the features of these questions. Okay, so the features of the questions, obviously, is the second conditional. Yeah? Then what I went in to do from there, I got them to do a controlled practice based on I got them to highlight some pronunciation features which you can find. What page was it again? 57. Yeah, so I highlighted some of the pronunciation aspects, yeah, and then I got them to convert some of the questions from the survey into the second conditional, yeah, and we worked on some pronunciation aspects from their questions, yeah. Finally, we did some control practice on page 57, yeah, was consolidated the second conditional. Okay, that's what I did. Any questions about the procedure? No? Okay, very quickly in your groups, have a look at the questions that I've given you, so on here. Yeah, what do you think see if you can go through some of those.
The task was vocabulary interesting. Looked at typical questions and there was a model with that.
Yeah, wasn't it? Sample questionnaire, sample quiz.
And it was also
Yeah,
a
there's
review
quite a few
anyway.
sums work, and I think it was intermediate 2 again, and it was on page, or 60, sorry, 60 is what the question is.
Used to. Usually and used to.
Usually used to, what else?
Language of friend.
Language of friendship, got some phrasal verbs in there. We've got some a discussion question. There's a kind of fairly pathetic gap fill, not very inspiring. So basically I based this task on page 60. Also I wanted to review the language of description. So that was on page 149. So the back to the language of description as well. That's what I based this task on. Firstly, what I did, I gave them some. Let's get that. Yeah. Okay, I gave them some quotes about friends. Basically what I did with this, I got them to
a true friend never gets in your way unless you happen to be going down.
So these were some quite nice quotes from the internet I got. And first of all I got them to read individually, decide 2 quotes they liked and decide why. Okay, and then the group work was decide share the ones that you liked with your group, and in your group decide the 2 best ones and why. Okay, so that was kind of the introduction to the task. Okay, and obviously, we talked about the topic of today's lesson was going to be talking about your friends. Okay, now what I did, I got them to I got them to look at these 4 pictures and got them to identify. They're all from Facebook as well, and got them to identify that obviously this was a really good friend of mine. And on the boards, I gave each group some of these boards, and they brainstormed questions that they'd like to know about my friend. Kind of questions like, how long have you known him? When did you meet him? What's happening in the photos? Blah, blah, blah. And these questions are very similar to the questions that they've actually given you on page 60. They come up with those questions, but also much better ones. What I did then, once we had questions, I prepared an anecdote, which you can find on the next page. And I didn't show them this anecdote at this point. I basically read it to them, and in the groups they answered the questions on the board. It's a series of questions that they found the answer to. Yeah, and then we kind of elicited. We found out exactly what information that I included in the anecdote, and if there was any information that they hadn't considered, what was it? So basically, it was a comprehension, just listening. Okay. Then what they did, they prepared their own anecdote using the questions that they had already created themselves. Yeah? So they just made notes at this point. And once they made notes, basically I came in and fed in some vocabulary, and then afterwards they, with a partner, they talked about their best friend or a close friend. Okay? I got them to change partners, and I got them to decide which of their partners they think had the closest friend, the specialist, the most special relationship. Okay? And then we did some feedback. Alright? Then I handed this out, and from this I got them to underline some features of the text. So there were 6 phrases or expressions to talk about relationships, and any adjectives or expressions for talking about appearance or personality. And I got them to do like a little sorting activity. Yeah. After that, we moved on, and these were the expressions that they should have found, talking about relationships. So if you look over to the next page, they did a matching activity, yeah, with the expressions, and then we did a little bit of pronunciation, yeah. But pronunciation not of my expressions, but they personalised the expressions using their anecdote, and we did some controlled practice as a drill. Then finally we went down here, and we did some personalisation, and then at home they wrote a text about their best friend. Okay, that was like the homework task. The next lesson I took in the text and they repeated the task with a different partner. Okay? And at the end we kind of had a class discussion about how, in what ways the anecdote had improved over the course of the lesson. Okay? That was about pretty much it. Okay, so very quickly, with your tasks.
Okay.
Which is the objective, whoever knows
Okay.
expressions themselves, didn't it?